Let's see. Noting the time and the presence of a quorum, I now call the Finance Committee to order. And our first item up for bid is going to be public comments. And seeing that there are no additional people in the audience for public comments, I'm going to start the agenda for the evening. So tonight we have four interns of the Finance Committee presenting their projects that they worked on over the summer. And these are all projects that they picked and they put a lot of time and effort in. And the order that we're going to go in is going to be Anvi, Eben, Peter, then Stephen. Each presentation is going to be about 5-ish minutes of presenting and like 10 minutes for questions. And for the interns, if when you want me to change slides, just raise a hand up. And I was wondering before we get started if someone has a good camera phone, if we get one photo of the four of them in front of the tapestry back there. Alex, would you please do that? Folks, we took pictures of the other people. We can't just not take a picture of you folks. I even moved the chairs out of the way. Just in front of the tapestry underneath the clock, then it will be consistent with the other folks. Thank you, Alex.
I did not know it was here, since that area isn't always on camera.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you for moving closer. All right. Thank you. And while they're heading back, I'm going to pull up Anvi's presentation. And I'll go to slideshow. And whenever you're ready, the mic, make sure the mic's on. And you can move the microphone. Press the button.
Oh, all right. Like this.
Yeah, bend it, twist it, or across the room.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Anvi. I am a student at UMass Lowell studying accounting, and I'm a rising sophomore. So today I'll be talking about, is there a post-COVID baby boom in Acton and its financial impact? So the data that I looked at is NESDEC. It stands for New England School Development Council. And on the very bottom, the blue part shows the estimate of births, and the turquoise shows children already born, and the white shows students already enrolled. And the birth year is from 27 to 2027, so like 11 years in total. So specifically, I focused on 2020, so the kids born in 2020. So as you see, like in the bottom of the turquoise numbers, represent the COVID year. And it shows like 7 years, like from K through 7. Yeah. So as you see, like I simplified the slides and the babies born in 2020 and like their future years are highlighted. So the 2020 babies, sorry, I already said that before. So what I did was I took the average of the COVID year amount and I eliminated like actually like the number for 2020. And I also took the difference from the COVID year minus the average. Now, if I take the average of all the differences, we get 22. And that 22 means more students are enrolled in the COVID year, meaning that there is a baby boom. So, for example, if I take first grade, there are 352 students, and that's like the COVID year. and then the difference comes to 15. And then when you like look towards the right, it increases, meaning like the enrollment is increasing. Yeah. So now coming to the financial impact of the COVID baby boom, the cost of one student enrolled represents $22,500 per year, so that's the cost. Therefore, the 22 extra students, the cost is $495,000 per year. And I did explain this before. The number of students, so the 22 students are the average difference between students in the COVID year and the average of all the other years, excluding 2020. So the impact of the COVID spike is equivalent to a capital project of $4.4 million. For example, a town buys 2 fire trucks of $2 million each, and it like lasts for 12 years. So in this graph, I used AI to generate a linear regression model. And in general, it just indicates that there's an increasing trend for an average number of births per year in Acton. So to conclude, based on the data, the COVID year does have an impact on enrollment, and there is a spike in enrollment. And there will be more expenses to the township as a COVID year first graders go through the rest of the grades, and the population is higher than the previous grades, and the township needs to take more account into these expenses to redistribute resources and accommodate them accordingly for the next 12 years. So therefore, there has been a baby boom in Acton. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go around the Finance Committee to see if there's questions, and I'll let people in the audience ask questions if they want. It's right here, Roland. Yeah, sorry. This is Roland. He's 10 minutes late. Any questions from the Finance Committee?
Yes. Is there a breakdown between Acton and Boxborough, or is this all just in aggregate for the district?
So honestly, I'm not really sure, but my best guess is like Acton and Boxborough combined.
Okay. And then I had another question. Did you look at the historical data to see if students tend to come in at the inflection years? So 7th grade for the junior high and 9th grade for the high school. So independent of population, are you anticipating any enrollment changes as a result of housing turnover?
Like housing is a, for housing, I'm not really looking into that.
You were just looking at births, okay. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Just asking.
No, that's okay, but I believe like other interns have mentioned like housing and transportation, which also has an impact as well.
Thank you. This was really interesting data.
Thank you.
What especially struck me is that it's a blip that moves through. So the increase drops. I mean, the enrollment drops a lot the next year, and that's a completely different sort of financial planning than if the arrow is moving up at a different place. So very, very good data. Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
John Peterson, Jackson Drive. I also thought it was very interesting that there was an increase in that associated with the COVID year. But the school system has a choice when enrollment increases. And just to make the math simple, in the elementary years, you showed the increase to be about 20 students. And there are about 20 sections in the elementary school. So the school could either increase the number of sections and therefore increase its expenses, or the school could elect to say, I'm going to let my class size go up from, say, 21 students to 22 students, which would then have no particular impact on the expenses of the district. Did you have a chance to look at class sizes to see if there were any differences?
No, I did not.
Yeah, hi. So I appreciate the fact that you kept the cost of the students constant over time. But that very seldom, that's never happened. So more realistic would at least show the cost going up 2.5% a year, at least.
That's really good to know. Bless you.
Is there any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, everyone. My name's Eben Andrews. I'm about to be a junior at Fairfield University. And this summer, I researched the budgetary impacts of the forecasted demographic changes in Acton. I will be answering a few questions, which include, how does the town of Acton's population shape the town budget? What is the town of Acton's forecasted population change, and what will change? What can be done to take of the change financially? So right here, we have the current tax revenue breakdown, and immediately we can see property tax is the biggest source of income for this town at 92%, or 102 out of the about $111.5 million. Next, looking at the expenditures, education is by far the largest expense at 66% of the budget. The next largest expense is the town government. So these include things like snow removal, repaving roads, police, fire, EMS, general services that the town would provide for tax-paying citizens. And I will be focusing mainly on the education expense, town government expense, and the property tax revenue of this town. When we break this down on a per capita level, we see that the average property tax bill in Acton is about $13,500 divided by the average people per household, which comes out to around $4,500, which is the amount per resident that the town brings in money, and that is spent on around $4,500 per person on these general services. And it's important to note that the school costs about $22,000 per kid per year, and that's across the average of all the schools. When we look at the budget growth in the past 10 years from 2014 to 2023, we see a 2.73% average annual town budget increase. There's a list of other towns for relevancy, but we also see a 3.6% annual inflation rate over the past 10 years, meaning the buying power of the budget has actually decreased. Another important thing to note is in the past 10 years, Acton home values have gone up an average of 6.1% each year, meaning more of the town's revenue will rely on property taxes. When we take a look at the budgetary impact by household, we can see that obviously a high-income house with a high property tax with no kids is going to have a strongly positive net fiscal effect. And if we get somewhere a bit more average, middle income, 2 kids, we can see a strongly negative net fiscal effect as moderate property taxes but a high school cost. So now what? With these demographics, how can we turn this into money for the town? So RKG Associates is a real estate developer based in Boston that recently published a report on the ease of development in Acton. And in that report, 2 quotes really stood out to me. The first quote said, age 65 and older is projected to increase by nearly 2,280 people and account for nearly 20% of the town's population in 2029, as compared to just 11% in 2010. The report also stated the significant increase in the population age 65 and older likely represents opportunity for residential development. Which brings me on to my proposed additional 55-plus community in Acton. And there are several reasons why I'd like to propose the encouragement of a development by another developer like RKG. One is the market size. Right now in Acton, the 55 to 59-year-old age cohort is the largest 5-year age cohort at 8.96% of the total population, and they are also the wealthiest. In the United States, baby boomers have $75 trillion worth of wealth. This amplifies returns for not only residential real estate investors, but also for amplified tax returns. The occupancy rates on 55-plus active adult communities outperform those of traditional senior housing 92.6% compared to traditional senior housing at 86.1%. The 55-plus communities would also offer a streamlined and low-effort ownership, further making these residences more attractive. This also adds the possibility of more tax revenue from services that the elderly are more likely to hire out, such as lawn service, lawn care, snow removal, maintenance like that, that this group is wealthy enough to afford and may not be mobile enough to do on their own. And like talked about in the previous slide, this would definitely add a budget surplus. And there are also other non-financial reasons I can think of why an additional 55-plus community would be beneficial. And one that I thought was very beneficial is, for example, if you take a 60-year-old couple that fits in this age group, they may be living in a house where their kids have graduated college, gone off, moved out, and they may be living in a house that's too big for them. I know my neighbor right now it's just two of them, and they're living in about a 4,000 square foot home. This would add a more manageable property size for them, while also allowing their previous residents to be opened up to new families or young couples looking to start a life in Acton. My proposed 55-plus community would be based off the Enclave in Boxborough. I'm not sure if anybody here is familiar with it. I also chose to base it off this because I have a personal connection. My grandmother and my grandfather both live in one of the units. They used to live down in Florida. My grandfather's health has been declining, and when this development was constructed in 2023, it offered a nice opportunity for them to move closer to their family while still maintaining an attractive property. The Enclave is set on 60 acres. It has 25 buildings and 2 units per building with 50 total residences. The residences are between $800,000 to $1.2 million based on floor plans, materials, other things such as an extra bathroom in the basement. So the result of adding something like this in Acton, based on the current tax rate of $1,750 of tax revenue per $1,000 of assessed house value, would bring in about $17,150 per house, and I assumed 2 people would be living here, so I made that about $8,500 in revenue per person, minus I rounded slightly up on the general service expense, because one thing I noticed or thought of is they're more likely probably to call fire and EMS if someone is taking something heavy in from the car, and if they fall, they're more likely to break bone and then call an ambulance, whereas someone may just twist an ankle, which is why my reasoning for rounding up. Anyway, this would net about $3,775 per person, which doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things. However, to have this same effect on the budget, a $3.6 million house would be needed for a family of 4, which is very rare in the town of Acton. So with just a quick comparison of a 55-plus community versus a traditional family community, I had 50 houses each times their value. I used $900,000 as it is for the families, as is the average home price in Acton right now. And then the expenses for each side, I did the average of about 3 people, like mentioned in the previous slide, per house, times that slight round down on general service because like I said before, I believe they're slightly less needing than the elderly. But the biggest thing that pops out is the school expense. Now, when I chose 57 times 22,000, I was trying to find data on how many children per household. I was able to find data on people per household and the percentages of household with children, but the actual children per household was a data point that was hard for me to find. I went with my best estimate of just above one child per household. But anyway, that comes out to a school expense of $1.25 million. And we can see when talking about the effect this would have on the budget, it is a difference of almost $1.5 million. So the impact of a community like this would obviously bring an attractive investment opportunity, as this age group is one of the wealthiest and biggest. It would not only benefit the developers, but also the town, as they would be able to bring in mass amounts of revenue from houses ranging from $800 to maybe even up to $1.4 million. This would also allow a proper adjustment for the growing and changing demographics in Acton. And this would allow Acton to retain aging populations where, for example, another community, a town over in Concord may be doing this, and residents may be cashing out on their home here, moving to Concord, and taking with them away from Acton to Concord is that valuable tax revenue and low yearly expenses on the budget. And like I mentioned previously, it would also allow for new families to move into those homes they once owned to start a new family.
Thank you very much. Hang out there. I'm sure there'll be at least one question from our audience or Finance Committee. Very nice job. Any questions from Finance Committee?
Sorry, tell me your name again.
My name's Eben Andrews.
Okay, thank you, Evan.
Yeah,
EB, okay. I didn't hear it at the beginning. So how much are the places at the place in Boxborough, the Enclave? What's the average, you said?
Yeah, so I looked it up. It was 800,000 to 1.2 million. They had different floor plan layouts and other customizable features like that.
Because one of the things that I hear is that when people are trying to downsize in Acton to sell their house, they might have to pay more for a smaller place.
Yeah.
And like, why would I do that? Like, the town gets to collect the same amount of taxes, great, but now I have a house that's half the size and I don't have my nice yard. So I think I like your idea, but I wonder if there would ever be consideration, or if you thought about like having things at a lower price point type of a thing. I mean, that's something I think the towns, if they want to bring 55 plus communities in here, they would have to think about that to actually entice people to get out of their big houses and still stay here, because we still need that balance, right? We can't have all families in town. We can't support the schools that way. And there was one other thing that just slipped in my mind, and I'll come back to it if I think of it. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. What's the break-even point? So to your point of if you build 50 new units of 55 plus housing and you entice 50 retired couples out of their single-family houses, is there not the risk that you will have created backfill so that now you've got, not only do you have the 50 or 100 people in the new houses, but you've also got now another 150 people in the houses that had been vacated. So did you do a calculation on the break-even point?
I did not do a calculation on the break-even point. If I was to assume that, I did not think of that, but if I was to assume that the houses the seniors moved out of would be filling back in with families, is that what you were saying? Yeah. Well, there would definitely have to be more senior houses than the family homes, as they are a larger expense to the town budget. But no, I did not calculate a break-even point on the number of houses.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah, so this was an excellent presentation or analysis. Now I've got one for you for next year.
Okay.
So you laid it out what the impact on the town is very well. So the question for next year is, if you were a developer that had 50 acres available in Acton or Boxborough, is it more profitable to build single-family houses for families or duplexes or whatever for seniors?
Yeah.
We understand we'd be better off as a town. The problem is, we don't make the decision.
I have, let's see, Scott sent me something by, I'm just blanking on the name, but it was, I believe, somebody in Concord referencing the RKG's report, and they basically talked about how condos would be the most profitable and best for the town.
You have a question, John?
I just wanted to make a quick comment, and then I do have a question. The comment is in terms of students per household.
Yeah.
In the Acton Boxborough district, we have about 5,000 students, and somebody here I know knows the exact number, but the dwelling units in town are 8,000 or some number like that. So 9,000. So the students per household is more like a half.
Okay.
But the question that I have is actually similar to the one that I asked earlier about the variable cost associated with this retirement community. So if we built this community, we'll still only have one town manager. We're not going to add to the town manager. And so there are a lot of fixed costs that are embedded in that municipal number. Do you have any idea, what percentage of that $4,500 might be a fixed cost versus what is actually variable associated with additional people living in town?
Well, I do not know off the top of my head, although I would know a fixed cost would be paving the roads. It doesn't matter how many people are in this town, the roads still need to be there. Variable costs like EMS and fire, but I do not know the exact numbers or exact variable and fixed cost amounts.
Thank you, John. Is there any other questions? All right. Very nice job, very thorough, and I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To the left of his name, Peter Maxwell. Yeah. Click that, get rid of the.
Sorry about that. I thought it was going to be easier, but I was wrong.
So I will, that's 135.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Peter Maxwell. I'm a rising junior at Colby College in Maine, and I graduated from AB in 2023. My project today is on the suburbs post-COVID, specifically the financial impact of remote employees on Acton, and housing values, job sectors, and then generally the attractions of Acton. Just for a quick overview, I'm going to go through some population trends and data, some immediate impacts, and then wrap up with my conclusions. So my first slide here is the Acton population divided up by age group. Specifically, I want to focus on the under 35 age group here, with the blue bar representing 2010, red bar 2020, and yellow bar 2024. We see in the under 35 bar here, there's a significant drop from 2020 to 2024, meaning that a lot of young families are moving out. I think we can contribute some of that to COVID. A lot of remote jobs and small living conditions have pushed people further out of cities. When given flexibility, a lot of young families thought more space was much better for their family. I also want to focus on the over 65. I know Eben mentioned this as well, but the over 65 community has increased by a lot. From the blue bar down under 2,500 to the yellow bar nearing 5,000. And I know that he estimates it will go much higher in the coming years. The second bar I have here is the K through 12 enrollment at AB. This is also from NESDEC, and it shows a slight decline. That's a trend we've been seeing for years. There's a slightly larger drop in 2020 of 200 students, which also makes sense as people left to move into more remote places. And we are currently sitting around 4,900 students. So for the immediate impact, I'm gonna look at job sectors, as in who is moving in and out of Acton, who is taking these remote jobs and leaving, and who has to stay, whose jobs are tied to Acton. My expectations were for tech jobs, which are in my following graphs labeled information, to decrease or grow at a slower rate, and more in-person heavy jobs, particularly health, management, government, to increase. Now for this information, I have the Strategic Economic Development Plans data, projections from 2024 to 2034. We have the largest increases, which you can see all the way on the right column, in management services, professional services, real estate, and health. In the following slide, we can see information, which is the category that I highlighted earlier, is the highest paid by average job in this community. And so a slower growth here, about 9% is what they projected over the next 10 years, less than 1% a year. Will leave a lot of higher market value houses not open to young families moving in because the young families who previously had information high-paying jobs are no longer in Acton. And to build more off that, housing values are increasing. We've seen that a lot. People moving into Acton, young families are looking for long-term housing, backyards, standalone properties, but the increase in percentage of properties that cost over $1 million is skyrocketing. In the next slide here, there is a graph there of the cost of a median house in Acton, which is approaching $900,000, which is a very large jump there. And so for some takeaways and conclusions, the detractions of Acton currently for families. High housing costs is a huge one. And going with that, increasing flexibility of work due to remote positions. People who have these flexible positions might prefer to have a $900,000 house that has 3 acres of land and 4,000 square feet instead of a significantly smaller property in Acton. And high taxes. For those with students, that makes much more sense. For those without students, that's maybe more something they need to take into consideration. As for attractions, for young families, there's always been attractions to Acton. Proximity to Boston, Concord, Newton, Watertown, all these jobs that have location-specific work in healthcare, in a traditional office environment. You have to be close to a city, you have to be close to your office. And so those people will always have to live in the suburbs somewhere. And then, of course, the good schools in Acton are always going to be a draw for people looking to start families. For older families and retirees, proximity to family members. Eben mentioned this specifically as well. His grandparents moved up to be much closer to him and his family. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue. And good hospital access, of course, is going to be very important. Massachusetts has some of the best hospitals in the United States, in Concord and Boston. So those attractions will continue for a long time.
Thank you, Peter. Let's see if there's any questions from the Finance Committee or our audience for Peter. You did such a good job, Peter. We are speechless. Everybody is speechless. Well, thank you, Peter, for the presentation. It was very well done. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
on to Stephen Starr.
All right. Hello, all. My name is Stephen Starr. I'm a rising sophomore at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and today I'm going to be discussing the financial and economic impacts of the MCI Concord development on Acton. So this is today's agenda for the presentation. In the next couple of minutes, I'm going to sort of outline how each of these sectors will be impacted by the development. All right. Firstly, we have the retail sector. In order to get a better understanding of how Acton's retail will be impacted, I decided to use Maynard Crossing as a template for how MCI Concord may look. Now, they are both roughly 50 acres and place a large emphasis on mixed-use retail, including mixed-use real estate, including retail, restaurants, banks, and other commercial avenues, as well as affordable housing projects and condominiums. It is worth mentioning that Maynard Crossing is currently anchored by Market Basket. However, the anchor store for MCI Concord is still, for the most part, unknown. This unknown anchor store could prove to be very problematic for Acton. For example, what if Concord went to a big home appliances retailer, such as Home Depot or Lowe's? That would be a significant detriment to Ace Hardware's business and would drive a lot of business out of that plaza. Or, on the other hand, what if Concord went to someone like Roche Brothers and said, you don't like competing with the brand new Stop and Shop right down the street, come be our anchor for the brand new MCI Concord Plaza. In either scenario, Concord is going to be potentially siphoning business away from Acton. But you may ask yourself, why would a retailer such as Roche Brothers want to leave their very own plaza that already has, loyal customers? Why would they want to jeopardize those relationships with customers that they already have? Well, maybe that's because Concord's tax rates are much lower than that of Acton's, both commercially and residentially. On top of that, Concord also boasts a much larger median household income. Thus, it would not be totally unfeasible for Roche Brothers, a grocery store who is tailored towards higher-end customers, to move to the brand-new plaza in a town that better fits their target customer. Keep taxes in mind. Let's talk about how the elderly population will be affected by the potential MCI Concord development. According to the Strategic Economic Development Action Plan, also known as the SEDAP, Acton's senior population is projected to grow by nearly 15%, or roughly increase of nearly 600 people. However, this number may be a little bit of a miscalculation. The SEDAP does not account for large affordable housing projects being built in the region, especially one of MCI's magnitude. This could significantly tilt the balance of their projections. And because of those residential taxes I mentioned before, it is possible that both seniors and empty nesters would want to lower their tax rates by nearly 25% by only moving a short distance away. Keep in mind that seniors are a very important age group because they typically do not add to the cost of the school system. Next, we have town water and sewer. Just a couple of brief facts to keep in mind. As most, if not all of you know, Acton has roughly 10% sewer capacity. Meanwhile, Concord boasts roughly 35% sewer capacity. Now, the current water treatment plant at MCI Concord is not hooked up to the Concord sewer system. Should they invest in such an operation to change that, it would cause an even larger disparity in sewer capacity between the two towns. This is not the only unpleasant news that I have to report. An article published by the Acton Exchange said that Concord has plans to build a new NAGOG water treatment plant, adjacent to their municipal light plant. The article notes that if NAGOG water were to no longer be treated on site, and instead in Concord, then Concord might stop supplying water to various businesses along the Great Road Corridor. Nonetheless, water, retail, and population are not the only things that are going to get affected by development of this size. Usually when a site of this magnitude is renovated, it means that new and more hectic traffic patterns will also be created. Now, as we all know, the Concord Rotary is already dangerous enough as it is. According to a study done by the Mass Department of Transportation, the Concord Rotary is 5 times more dangerous than the average unsignalized intersection. Concord has discussed numerous ways of solving this issue, most pressing to Acton being if they were to cut off the 2A exit and make Great Road only reachable through Weatherby Street. This would prove to be catastrophic for businesses along the Great Road corridor, as it would significantly decrease the amount of traffic going in that direction. All right. So that was a lot of information that I sort of just buzzed over. So I've created a diagram to sort of depict all the issues and how they compound together. Now today, MCI Concord is just an idea left up for imagination. But this timeline shows just how quickly it can become reality. The first stage is called development. Here, the town of Concord is done with all the brainstorming and has officially created blueprints for the new MCI Concord. While dismantling the prison, Concord applies for state subsidy and issues municipal bonds to fund the project of connecting the MCI water plant to the sewer system. Next comes step 2, acquisition. At this point, they have broken ground and are building the shopping center of their dreams. Meanwhile, they're gathering tenants to fill their spaces, talking to big box retailers, as well as local businesses and residents, offering them low taxes and rent in their brand new mixed-use center. Then comes the final stage, nicknamed the aftermath. Here, the development is fully operational. Concord Rotary is backed up more than ever as Concordians, as well as others, pour into the brand new establishment. Unfortunately, the story is not the same in Acton. For at least signs pop up in front of what was once high-value retail space, because no one east of Acton dares to go through the Concord Rotary when they can just stop off at the new MCI development. Now, this is a scary reality, but it does not need to be our reality. We need to act now. Based on my research, it is my opinion that Acton should rethink its tax policies. Perhaps Acton should consider a bifurcated or split tax rate where commercial taxpayers pay less than residential ones. Furthermore, Acton should be a friend of Concord in their time of need. Concord has high aspirations, but they will need a lot of funding for these aspirations to come to fruition. If we invest in this project now, we can buy ourselves some real negotiating power. But the bottom line is, we need to be aware of this situation. The setup made no reference to MCI Concord. We need to include this in town planning if we want Acton to thrive.
Thank you, Stephen. Are there questions from the Finance Committee? Steve?
Not a question, just a comment. This is a committee that's known around town as being kind of doom and gloom. And we don't have anybody here as young as you on the committee, but you may have a future on this committee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Roland?
Just a comment too. I think, that gets developed. Of course, it's got to be developed. There's a power plant there as well, so what happens to that? But also, if they build something, when they do develop it, depending on what gets developed there, I also envision that siphoning business off of West Concord and off of downtown Concord, because heck, why go there?
For sure.
Right?
Totally agree.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of things. They put a Home Depot in there. Who knows what happens? I go to Ace a lot. I just think it's because it's easy to get to it.
Yeah. So,
yeah, there's a lot of good points that has to be considered.
Thank you.
You use the two tax rates between the two towns as if they were evenly apples to apples comparisons. And I was curious if you were able to do any normalization of the price of housing between the two towns. So just because the tax rate is different between the two towns doesn't mean that is directly proportional for what's going on, because the same structure in Acton is going to be valued at a different price in the town of Concord. So I would caution on the slide that you had there that you not just directly compare the tax rate.
Is it okay if I respond to that?
Of course.
So, I mean, I think the tax rate point more so applies to, you know, businesses commercially and also to, you know, seniors that are already looking to downsize. So, you know, tax rate in terms of square footage, you know, obviously the average town size in Concord is bigger, it costs more and stuff like that. But seniors aren't looking for bigger homes. I'm specifically looking for seniors and empty nesters that are looking to downsize into these affordable housing projects and condominiums.
John, do you have a question?
Yeah, before seniors get typecast, I do need room for my kayak, so in any planning, that should be included. This was really a great presentation in terms of trying to have, you know, a vision for the future. And I particularly appreciated your bringing in Maynard Crossing as a way to look at a real example and say, what might this look like? The one thing that I was surprised by is my expectation was that in the redevelopment process, it would be highly likely that the Rotary would be reconfigured.
Yep.
But that's not what I thought I heard you say. So, and I think with that Rotary reconfiguration, it's hard to know what that's going to mean for traffic patterns.
So the Massachusetts Department of Transportation did a study within the last 5 years that was sort of breaking down. I think they had over 30 you know, sort of scenarios as to what that Rotary could look like in the future. One of the most, I highlighted the one that they cut off, the 2A exit, specifically because it was also highlighted by a lawyer who lives in Concord, but also is a landowner in Acton, who wrote a letter to the town, who was also very worried about, you know, what that could mean for the businesses along Great Road. So the problem with, you know, a lot of this, including the traffic, is that we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. It's a lot of what ifs. But we can, you know, forecast, you know, probable outcomes and prepare, you know, best for them as we can.
About that on. And I think one thing that you did mention was the sewer capacity, which is a constraint in Acton, and having new capacity, I guess I would describe it, in Concord would definitely be a competitive advantage for Concord, for a business looking to come into this geography.
Yeah.
So, is there any other questions?
On the plus side, something like this would make my children more likely to stay in town. They really don't like how little there is to do here, but they'll drive over to Sudbury.
Well, there you go.
So thank you. There's some upside potentially.
Try to end on a positive note. All right, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, all the interns. Thank you very much. You do not have to stay for the rest of the Finance Committee meeting. We're going to talk about some stuff that you can listen to or not listen to. It's up to you. You are free to go. I know some of you are heading right back to college, so.
Oh, and hey, Eben, it's good to see you again. And for the record, Generation X is 1965 to 1980. So that over 55 stuff, we're not boomers. Yeah, not boomered yet, so. Good luck to all of you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll get all of the interns my document with the resume stuff and everything. I just need a couple days. All right, thank you. Thank you very much for everything. All right. Let me get back to, all right. All right. I forgot Greg was on the on the camera. I don't know if Greg had any, it's too late now, Greg, if you had a question for the interns. They've left. Sorry if we missed you. Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah, geez. All right. So, on the agenda, I'm not prepared for the meeting minutes. I'm going to have to push that to the next meeting. Can I make it bigger? Yes. Yeah, yes. Is that better? All right. I can make it larger. I can hand you the computer. So I want to leave the meetings approvals to next meeting. I think the first thing we have to discuss is if there is any adjustments or corrections to the prior presentations. I know there's some comments that we have to make. You have thoughts, Jason?
Well, first, just on the overall topic of the interns, I was thrilled at the variety of projects that they chose. I found a number of these topics to be quite thought-provoking, and glad to see some fresh eyes on it. So that from that perspective, I really like that there was such a breadth of conversation. That said, I do want to point out things that were said in two of the presentations last time. I just want to be very careful about making sure that we don't have any misinformation about where taxes come from. So and I didn't think we were discussing this tonight. I didn't write up my comment, but there was a couple of references to just taking the tax rate number and running with it. That's not necessarily a fully informed way of looking at how taxation comes in town. So, for example, you can't just take a tax rate number from Acton and compare it to another town. You have to pay attention to the real estate values in the two different towns. And so I thought I thought that some of the presentations may not have fully fleshed out that difference, and may have been missing a couple of deeper points.
Thank you, Jason. I just want to also point out that the interns, we kind of gave them a wide variety of subjects to pick. They picked the topics. They worked independently. We had one check-in with all of them together where I had them present to each other so that they could get feedback and just try to get the message clear. The content was not scrutinized. It was leaving it up to the interns to try to validate as much as is possible. If this is done again, we can look at other ways of maybe cleaning things up before they're presented. But this is the first pass at this. I was very happy to have 11 college students spend part of their summer doing a project to highlight something in the town and not getting compensated and caring about it enough to come and then present it. So
I'm glad they were as richly paid as we are. So it's a wonderful thing.
yeah, we share compensation openly and very willingly. Go ahead, Alex.
I think those comments are fantastic, and this was a phenomenal first round, I guess, and I appreciate you for putting that together. Would it be helpful for us to have a few minutes tonight or at one of the following meetings to have a lessons learned for, when we do this again? Because I would definitely propose that we do this again, as well as the presentations that were given, what do we want to further discuss and incorporate into our plan for the year for discussion? Because like MCI Concord, that kind of blew my mind a little bit, and I've never looked fondly upon this is subjective opinion. I've never looked fondly upon like over 55 communities because I got burned through one through my parents when they were in one. So Eben did a nice job of giving some new insight into that for me. So I think discussing a lot of these would be beneficial for us. Thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, so I just want to, I totally agree, Alex. So just for the purpose of the committee, I just want to explain how I structured this to finish with the interns. So I described how we got here, and as you've heard me kind of talk to them as they were leaving, what I have promised each of them was a kind of a summary from my perspective of things that they did. I'm going to write for them the piece for their resume as they try to find internships, because they all did something a little bit different. I think the other benefit, as I told them, is that when you're doing these presentations and you're applying for internships, you can talk about the job, you can show the job description, and you can show the video of your presentation. Because you can snip it, throw it on your resume. So if someone wants to see what you presented, they can see you talking about something you were passionate about in front of an audience. I am also going to ask them what I personally could have done better, what this program could have done better, and any suggestions that they have. And I think when I get that feedback, I can then share the feedback with the finance committee, and then we can go into the step you described, because then you'll have data points to then build off of. And I hope we do this again. I'd love to do this again. If we do this again, I think with more planning up front, I still want them to pick the topics, because I don't want to assign things, but we could have a broader listing of ideas for them to dig into. And then we could have, people lined up already for those concepts to provide them immediate support.
Sure.
My biggest concern when they started the project, because they started on June 3rd, and they had to be done by August, was access to data. And I want to thank the town manager and his staff for, Marianne is not here now, Ellie, I'm sure, helped as well, for assisting and responding to data inquiries, fire chiefs, police chief, other members of the town, and probably in their year end, which is a busy time of year for them, were being very helpful in responding to data requests. But I didn't want them starting with no data. So a lot of the data, the strategic economic development plan came out actually at a perfect time, because it was, the $60,000 consulting survey that gathered a lot of data. And it gave them kind of an idea of what town analysis is, and to jump off in areas that they wanted to go. So.
That's really good, and I appreciate all the work that you've done for this. And one of the lessons learned for us to discuss, I think, would be helping you with the load of work,
Yeah, certainly. Like this started when I was figuring this out as it was going.
Oh, that's the best kind of iteration, though.
Yes, so.
That's my kind of software development life cycle.
It's kind of, go ahead, Roland.
So the one that did, I think it was Evan, who gave us the spreadsheet on, Ian, on the tax rates, with the commercial tax rate, if you do lower the tax rate, you play with his spreadsheet?
Oh, Ian did the incremental marginal cost calculator. Or which one are you talking about? Aditya did a tax.
It was a later one from last time. So the one thing that, I don't, they talk about the commercial, you talk about the commercial tax rate, et cetera, but it's also that we've offered tax incentives in the past. The TIF, right, when Insulet came in. There were other one with AES, that AES didn't meet their numbers, they didn't get the full benefit of that. And that's a way that you can help fill vacancies, right? You know, like with Insulet, that building was vacant for a long time, they put a lot of money into it. And their taxes ramp up over 20 years in total. First 10 years are flat, pretty much, you know, you get your 2.5% increase or whatever. So there's just things that could have been incorporated into it, you know, in future, that they just look at the tax rate, and they didn't look at that. And, you know, Jason's point is, what's the valuation of property? You know, yeah, Concord's gonna have a lower tax rate, but their property values are a lot higher than Acton's, their assessed value. So therefore, I mean, my house, they put in Concord, I could throw another 150 grand onto it. And yeah, you can lower the tax rate that way, but, so as Jason said, they're not apples to apples comparisons, right? The town I grew up in, they have a harbor, so they have a harbor master, but that's paid by the mooring fees for the boats. They also own a country club that they at least have to get managed. They make revenue off that country club every year. They own their own light plant to make revenue off of that, so they can offset other things. They have other tools in their toolbox so not Concord's with their light company. So it's not exactly, it's very hard to do an apples to apples comparison with something exactly like that.
Thank you, Ron.
As we've seen, a lot of people don't understand tax rate. So it would probably be good going into something like this, if we could just right off the bat explain why that's not a good description, use of that phrase, rather. And if we could come up with some shorthand way to convince people in general, that would be good.
I also want to say that I felt like the presentations that were explaining complicated things that I think most people in town don't understand were very helpful, like the Chapter 70 calculation and a couple other ones. So the informative ones I thought were very helpful as well. Unless there's any other comments, Corinne?
I'll just say real fast, I thought like all the presentations were great, and they said the variety of them also really highlighted the tension or friction between all these interests, right? We can't do everything we want to do for seniors, or the schools, or empty nesters, or whatever, and there's got to be some give and take. I thought, like I said, they presented such a variety of, competing desires. I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, the thing I found was kind of from my perspective, like in the front line of this, a little bit amazing was that I didn't direct them towards topics. I had 11 people, and 10 people picked different topics. One person wanted to do a topic that someone already had, but they were the last person to pick a topic. I'm like, if 3 people were doing the same thing, but I can't have like 10 people do something different and then you do something that someone else just did. So we switched topics on that one. I did like the marketing concept for the town, the buy Acton thoughts. So I thought we had some financials, some marketing, some. Greg. Sorry, I should put these on so I can see you. There you are.
No, that's all right. So my question is, all 11 of these interns from Acton?
I heard the first part of your question very loudly, and the last part you whispered, but it was, all the interns were from Acton except for Evan. He's the one that was referencing the enclave, I think, in Foxborough.
Eben was from Acton, though.
He was originally, and then he moved?
Yeah, graduated with my daughter in '23.
Okay, so technically, yes, they're all from Acton. They're not all currently living in town. One, Anvi came down from New Hampshire to present tonight.
Yeah, that's impressive all by itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions any other thoughts on this before we move on? All right. John?
Hi, John Mangiarelli, Town Manager. I just wanted to say that I'm very impressed with the students and the college students that did internships. I really appreciate, Scott, you taking your personal time to create this program and to get a group of students involved in local government. I'm involved in a lot of professional associations, and we're trying everything we can to get people to want to get into municipal finance and local government, and it's hard, but I think you just brought 11 people in the room, and you did it. So I hope that a few of those people join the finance committee, you know, run for select board, anything. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that some people could go their whole life and not know what those 11 kids just learned. And so I really appreciate you doing this, and I hope to do it again.
Thank you, John. All right, so moving on apologize for the kind of abbreviated agenda. So I have a kind of placeholder here for open items, pressing items that have to be covered, because the last meeting was all presentations. This meeting is basically all presentations. I'm just going to rattle off a couple things top of my head, and then we can go around the room here to see if there's, you know, pressing issues that we have to discuss. I would prefer to leave any thick conversations to our next meeting, ideally. So I'm just going to kind of rattle through a couple quick things, and I'll pass the mic here. So first things first, there is a tri-board meeting with the school committee, the select board, the Boxborough School Committee. I'm not sure. At the select board meeting last night, Dean said that members of the select board were all welcome to attend. So, I'm assuming I would say the same thing to the finance committee. And that is September 3rd at 7 o'clock. It's on her calendar. 7 o'clock, and the administration building on Charter Road, 15, at 7 p.m. on September 3rd. Okay. And the agenda is, I believe, to just discuss where the schools are now with everybody in the room and have an open questions and discussion. I don't have any specific detail past that. I'll just go through my other bullet items, and then we can talk about whatever people want to talk about. We can come back to that if we need to. Just randomly, I missed the the health insurance trust meeting, but since I did attend the select board meeting last night, I heard Alyssa Nichols' update and the town manager update about the health insurance trust, and the big takeaway from that is that they were saying that the retirees that are on the insurance are facing a large insurance increase. The broker Gallagher is actively working to mitigate that financial impact, but the increase right now is material. I think John mentioned last night it was 40%. He's nodding, so yes, which seems insane. I'm going to trust that my former employer will find a way to get that cost down. And also, the select board had their meeting last night. There was a very long meeting. I think that probably Corinne, did you have a summary? Could you help me with the summary for that?
I was traveling last night, so I tried to watch some of it today. The one thing I did here, I think that on the HIT thing, I think there was a little good news there, that.
Yeah, I was just taking the Stephen Starr negativity approach.
Okay,
I'm just
it's all
saying
good.
all negative things.
So they think that they're supposed to get like 1.2 million back from that, so to hopefully offset some of this 40% stuff. And I only said they're recruiting to replace Mary Ann, but with 2 positions, HR and F&A. And I said, it's 4 hours and 38 minutes. And I was watching at a 1.5 speed, and I only got through about a third of it today, so.
I lasted for 4 hours and 30 minutes. Town manager did do a nice presentation for the 2027 budget preview.
Okay.
I can summarize that for Finance Committee. I'll do that at the next meeting if, I don't want to spend time on that right now, but he did a nice summary. He had a handout for it, which I'm sure is on the town site for the select board documents. I think I'm passing the mic. Who wants to talk next on items?
If we think we're going to have a quorum for the tri-board meeting, we will need to post an agenda, which will be a little different timing-wise because of the long weekend. Just
Yes, so
keeping that
I have to get that in a meeting, so maybe we should just do a quick attendance for that?
Just plan for the meeting, and if we get a quorum, we'll call. If we don't get a meeting, somebody will say it gets canceled.
All right, that works.
I would like to say, pressing item, I would like us to pick up the topic of a point of view starting on our next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
We will do that starting next meeting.
Great.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that the DPW Building Committee met last month. They are looking at 4 scenarios, and they should be getting cost estimates in sometime this week, and those will get presented early in September. So it's interesting that the new consultant, AeroStreet, is approaching this in a very similar fashion, Scott, to your approach, which is let's look at a range of options. And so instead of here's a one-size-fits-all approach, it'll give us a lot to digest.
Thank you, Greg, for reminding me. I did confirm last night, because I wasn't as close to it as you are, that the scenario that I ideally wanted to see worked out is one of the scenarios. I think it's like 4B or something, or 4C, something. So, yes, they have a scenario analysis that's coming. We will be back on our normal rigmarole meetings next time. And just as a simple thing, I would prefer, instead of checking to see if people are coming, to just have people tell me if they're not going to be here. So I'm just going to assume everybody's going to be here unless you tell me otherwise. Because I like confirming people for quorum. I don't have everybody's cells and everything, so I think that's just a better way of doing it.
Just don't worry, summer's the hardest. It gets easier from here.
Oh, I know, we're out of it. Summer's over. Summer's over. School's back in session, so. Is there any other items or anything that anybody wants to bring up tonight? Otherwise, we'll carry forward to our next meeting. Alex, you're on.
Reminds me of an old joke that I say to the kids all the time when, we're going somewhere. Tell me if you're not here. And then we leave anyway. Motion to adjourn, everybody.
Second. We have to do a roll call. Greg? Roll call.
Aye.
Steve? Aye. Alex?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Chrissy?
Aye.
Roland?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Aye. The Finance Committee is adjourned. Thank you.